This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at Kova Software, the #1 dispensary point-of-sale system in North America, with an average of nearly 100 new dispensary clients opening their doors every month. Some of the biggest retail brands and most remote cannabis stores in the US and Canada count on Kova. Swing over to kovasoftware.com today to see why. That's kovasoftware.com with Kova spelled C-O-V-A. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Thursday, March 25th, 2021, and you're tuned in to episode 1036 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. We have an interesting top headline today because we've kind of run one form of it or another a number of times in recent weeks as word broke out of New York State that lawmakers have actually and finally come to a full compromise on a plan to legalize adult use marijuana. This storyline has been teasing the news a lot in recent days, and yesterday afternoon, word started to break that all of the final wrinkles in an agreement over legalization have been worked out. As Kyle Yeager has it over Marijuana Moment, the actual text of the agreed-upon legalization plan has not yet been officially released, but the broad points for how it will happen have been. According to what we know so far, New York State's adult use legalization system will have a taxed and regulated sales program and be built around a tax rate of just 9%, with another 4% in local taxes possible. Home grow would be allowed, and the state would have a social equity program that aims to give 50% of all licenses to social equity program participants. One of the plan's more exciting points is the allowance of social consumption businesses. New York's existing medical stores would be allowed to open up 4 more shops each, as long as 2 were in underserved communities, and they could also add 2 adult use shops to their operations. All in all, it sounds like a pretty solid plan. We still await, of course, the official rollout of the proposal, but so far, so good. Kyle's story has all the details here if you want them. As we always do, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com. Returning to another storyline that's been rather active in recent days, we have White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki being asked yesterday why the White House fired 5 staffers last week for their past use of cannabis, when Vice President Kamala Harris has also acknowledged being a consumer of marijuana in her younger days. Psaki mostly dodged the question and claimed that marijuana's federal illegal status bound the hands of the Biden administration in how it handles historic cannabis consumption, ignoring entirely that President Biden could fully waive any kind of marijuana-related hiring policies. There's no actual law that compelled the firings. This is an oily stain on the Biden administration and is a good thing for you to know about. Ben Adlin, a new regular over at our weekly show Marijuana Today, takes us out on our final top story with a pickup of news out of Delaware, where an adult use marijuana legalization bill was approved by the House Health and Human Development Committee by a vote of 10-5, moving it on to the Appropriations Committee for its next round of deliberation. The legislation, titled House Bill 150, was introduced by Representative Edward Osinski and would create a taxed and regulated sales program with a 15% sales tax. Notably, the bill would not allow for home grow, but Representative Osinski did say that there was still plenty of time for revisions based on feedback, so hopefully that is an item that will change. If made into law as currently written, Delaware would issue up to 30 dispensary licenses, 30 processing licenses, and 60 cultivation licenses in the first 16 months of operations, with 5 licenses for testing labs. Thankfully, the program does have a built-in social equity system and would give half of all dispensary and testing licenses and a third of all cultivation and processing licenses to social equity program participants. Good luck to everyone in Delaware in getting that pushed forward. Those are the top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz it in headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Kova Software, the #1 dispensary point-of-sale system in North America, with an average of nearly 100 new dispensary clients opening their doors every month. Some of the biggest retail brands and most remote cannabis stores in the US and Canada count on Kova. Not only is Kova Software super easy to use and compliant with all the right rules and regulations, but it's also hugely flexible when it comes to scaling your operations up. The last thing you want to have to do is to switch POS systems as your company gets bigger, and when you choose Kova, you can rest assured knowing that it will be there for you from your first store through your 100th. And beyond. The team behind Kova has been in the point of sales game for more than 20 years now, so they have a solid handle on all the little things that will make your life easier, right from the onboarding process through continuing support. Learn all about the benefits of being a Kova client over at kovasoftware.com, with Kova spelled C-O-V-A. That's kovasoftware.com. Big thanks to everyone at Kova Software for the support that helps us keep the news lights on. All right, time for the Blitz. Lawmakers in Minnesota have advanced a bill in the state's House that would legalize adult-use marijuana. House File 600, if signed into law, would create a taxed and regulated sales program and was voted 8-5 yesterday by the House Agriculture, Finance, and Policy Committee, making it the fourth legislative committee it's passed through. The bill's next swing will be through the House Environment and Natural Resources Finance Committee, so hopefully this is a storyline we return to with good updates in the future. The gardening store chain GrowGeneration Corp. just officially released its Q4 and full year 2020 fiscal numbers, with fourth quarter revenues increasing 144% annually to $62 million, with a positive adjusted EBITDA of $5.6 million, up from $900,000 the year before. For the full year of 2020, GrowGen pulled in revenues of $193 million, up 143% from the previous year, and a positive adjusted EBITDA of $19.2 million, a jump from the $5.3 million made in 2019. New Cannabis Ventures has the rest of the numbers and details here if you need them. Up with another set of financials is Colorado-based cannabis company MariMed, which realized $20.4 million in revenue for Q4 2020, up from $5.2 million the year before. The company had a positive EBITDA for the quarter of $7.7 million, much better than the $16 million lost in the same quarter in 2019. For the full year, MariMed had revenue of $50.9 million, up 207% from 2019, and a positive EBITDA of $16.3 million. Whereas in 2019, it lost $17.3 million. The company stated, along with last year's results, that it expects to do $100 million in revenue this year. Gage Cannabis, the company led by former Canopy Growth CEO Bruce Linton, is filing paperwork to list on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Gage Cannabis is based in the U.S. with a current operational focus in Michigan and expects to start trading under the stock symbol GAGE sometime early next month. Speaking of Michigan, that state's regulatory agency just released some numbers for how medical and adult-use marijuana stores have been doing. According to that data, legal marijuana sales in Michigan during the month of February were up big time, with medical sales increasing 48% from the same month last year and adult-use sales growing 353%. In all, for February of this year, a touch over $67 million in legal adult use products were sold and $38 million in medical. New Cannabis Ventures has a good story on this with a much deeper breakdown on the numbers that is worthy of a full dive in, especially if you do any kind of business in Michigan. The Brevard County School Board of Florida is justifiably getting some heat this week after it fired a teacher because she uses medical marijuana, which is legal in the state. Furthermore, state law lets schools carve out policies allowing for the sensible use of medical cannabis by staff, but the Brevard County School Board never bothered to get around to doing that. So when teacher Allison Enright was pushed down by a student during an incident in school and received medical care, her admittance to using medical marijuana meant she would lose her job. During a recent school board meeting, Ms. Enright asked school board members to use their powers to keep her in her teaching position, but they took the cowardly way out by voting to fire her while saying that they regretted having to do so. We wrap today's dive into the cannabis news stream up in Canada, where according to a recently released study in the year 2019, just under a third of all medical marijuana users in the nation were over the age of 65, a big jump up from 2017 when seniors made up just 17.6% of consumers. If that is not a clear indication that older folks are going to use a lot of medical cannabis once it's legal and accessible everywhere, I don't know what is. Ignore this general storyline at your own professional peril. Mary Jane has all the other particulars and numbers on this. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Kova Software, and to our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.